Stanford School of Business lecturer Dave Dodson with us right now. Dave, we're at 103 months of consistent job growth. Do you see anything right now that would slow that down in the very near future?
No, I don't think so. 103 months is a pretty good record, right? I mean, the Trump administration was probably doing cartwheels yesterday when they got that report. Of course, they have 16 more to go before the election. Unquestionably, it was a really good jobs report. The two things that stood out for me was, one, it is a continuation of adding 200 and some thousand jobs month after month after month for, as you said, 103 months. But I thought what's really been curious is the uptick in increase in real wages over the last few years. And so I've been spending some time looking at it, and there is absolutely no question what's driving that. It's the lower quartile of jobs, and it's being driven by minimum wage increases. So what's going to be interesting is as the states and local municipalities keep cranking up minimum wage, you're going to have a situation, I think, where Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren are both going to be arguing over who gets credit for the increase in wages.
You know, it's interesting, too. I know a lot of small business owners and others who have a double of a time filling positions because there's such open competition for those positions. And I don't know whether physically forcing the minimum wage up was what started it, but it's now driven by just the robust economic activity and competition among employers to find workers who seem to be suddenly in short supply.
Yeah, the convenient thing is when you've been cranking up minimum wages at exactly the time when employers are struggling to get workers. So you haven't seen any negative impact of an increase in minimum wage. And that's been good. And in fact, what was in the jobs report, which I think is sort of unseen, but you kind of have to get in the weeds a little bit, is a lot of people came off the sidelines and entered the workforce. So that's all good. The question is, how long can this go on for? And we all have to acknowledge that this is a debt-fueled economic boom. The data is crystal clear. And so are we the generation that sort of pulled the ladder up behind us, or is this something that's going to build long-term economic growth?
Dave, could I ask you about something the president had mentioned, that he's been very critical of the Federal Reserve. Of course, he has seen his two appointees to the Federal Reserve nixed over the past week and a half or so, so he might be just grinding here. But he has recommended the Federal Reserve lower interest rates by a full percentage point, return to quantitative easing, the thing he criticized during the Obama presidency, because he says that would spur even more growth, much stronger growth than we're seeing now. What do you think of that?
Well, look, I mean, it's probably the one thing that President Trump and Joe Biden can agree on, which is nobody wants to raise interest rates. How do you expect to get votes going into 2020 if you're telling an America that is up to their eyeballs in debt that we're going to increase interest rates? So I'm sure every politician on both sides of the aisle wants to keep interest rates low for now. And also, Neil, keep in mind that interest on the federal debt is now substantially higher than our entire military budget. So you start bringing up interest rates, that's going to be devastating for the economy, which is why there's going to be a whole lot of pressure. And President Trump will probably park Air Force One in front of the Federal Reserve if he has to keep interest rates from going up.
Or tanks. Real quickly, it's an anomaly. It might be just me obsessing about it. But we've got a 10-year note yielding around 2.5%. We've got federal funds, the overnight bank lending rate, at around 2.5%. It's weird. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, interest rates, you know, they used to hover around 3 to 4%, and now they've been they were at zero since 2008, and now they're up to 1 or 2%, and we're all going, oh, my gosh, they're so high. I actually think that when history is rewritten, the Federal Reserve will be the biggest sort of criminal in what I think will eventually be when the music stops. And that's this, is low interest rates have caused people and the federal government and state and local governments to do what's rational, which is borrow like crazy. And as soon as those interest rates come up, or people's borrowing capacity has reached the max, which I think we're near, then the fuel that has been driving GDP growth and job growth is going to end, because you can only borrow so much money, whether it's your auto loan or your student loan or the federal government.
Until the music ends, right? We just know when the music ends. Dave, I always enjoyed talking to you. I always regret that I didn't have a professor like you back when I was in school. I would have probably learned a lot more than I did, but very good having you. Have a great weekend.